Hi, everybody. I like to cry. You make me cry. You can hear me, yeah? No? Now can you hear me? Now I'm not crying. Is that better? I'm going to try it.
Wait until you have a solid green and then it'll be good. It'll stay solid, won't give it a second. Be good.
I got it. Is that better? Okay. All right. Here I go. Big voice. Okay. So one of the things that can you hear me? Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. One of the things that I always believed in is one thing to design. It's going to take me a little while to mellow into this. Anyway, it is one thing to design and build a garden, and another thing to teach it how to grow. There I am on the whatever side of the screen, right side of the screen. So I grew up in San Francisco in the Sunset District. And the Sunset District was basically built on the sand dunes. And fortunately, to the right was the Golden Gate Park, and to the west was the Pacific Ocean, and to the left was the San Francisco Zoo. And these were the kind of houses, this was the kind of house I grew up in. When they were first built, they were kind of quaint. They had wood windows, they had wood double garage doors. It was before automatic doors. There were no trees. We had little lawn strips. Where's my pointer? Excuse me, trying to figure this all out. So there were little lawns, whoops, there they are. Little teeny lawn strips, that's a perfect example. Lawn strips, and then there were little plants there. And they called them backyards, they didn't call them gardens. They were simple houses, there were 2 bedrooms with 1 bath. Some of the people put what they called a sunroom on the back. And it used to drive me crazy, and then over time, people were tired of mowing the lawns. So as you can see, they concreted. This is a perfect example of the way the area looks now. Let's move on here. And so I went into the sand dune backyard, and I thought, you know what, I've been in the park, I've been to the ocean, I've been to the zoo, it's green, I have to do something. I was 14 years old, and that's my garden. And 5 years later, it was kind of my hideaway. It was a place for me to escape. It wasn't a healthy upbringing. So I guess I saved my allowance is what I can remember. I bought bricks. You can see the bricks. I'm not going to keep using the pointer. Some bamboo poles. I did some dividers. And I would go out there, because that was my escape, so I didn't have to go to the park, didn't have to go to the zoo. And I watched, I kind of taught myself about new growth, old growth. I had lights, and I had this whole world I could go hide in. And I did a lot. Whoops, wrong way. Is that the next one? No. So I mentioned that it was a treeless neighborhood. There were no trees. So, let's see, planter. Lon Shapiro, a 19-year-old City College student, won an achievement award from the Department of Public Works for having planted trees on both sides of his neighborhood. I planted over 60 trees, all by myself. They're all gone now. You can again see that there were some these are my neighbors. Everybody was always curious. The one thing that this article fortunately didn't mention, I was a 19-year-old city college student, but I was on probation. And that year, I was asked to leave because of my grade point average. I suffered from dyslexia, didn't learn how to read or write, and so I had to find ways, again, to just kind of make myself as comfortable as possible. One of those things, I'm not sure why, was dealing with nature. The house that you just saw, I had these dreams. I thought, oh, I want to be an interior designer. There's a school, Parsons School of Design in New York. I thought, wow, Parsons. My parents couldn't afford to put me there, and the whole idea of moving me to the East Coast was just not an option. So I found out that in San Francisco there was a school called Rudolph Schaefer School of Design, and it was not accredited. So I didn't have to worry about taking tests. I didn't have to do algebra, didn't have to do biology 1. I didn't have to do any of those courses. So my parents, who couldn't afford to put me at Schaefer School, sold the house, moved to Park Merced, which was a planned community, and could afford to put me to school. So I enrolled in Schaefer School, and there's a picture of Rudolph. He's 92 years old. Swipe button? Yeah. When I started at Schaefer School, it was a 3-year program, 3-year course. I was a little lost, but I was very fascinated by, and I became very close friends with Rudolph, who was also very much into his garden. And so we remained together. He lived till 102. He was a master of many things. He used to do, he was always in a tie. He always wore a tie. And you can see that he's got a head of celery and persimmons. And so one of his classes, which was flower arrangement, he would do these kind of elaborate, he's putting daisies in the celery, and he's putting persimmons and daisies in his other arrangements. And then I graduated school, and I thought, now what am I going to do? Couldn't really get a job anywhere, couldn't read, couldn't write very well. And so I want to open up a little store. And I thought, well, I'm going to move out of San Francisco. So I wound up in Marin County, in San Anselmo, and I was going to do interior landscaping. And my friend John was a graphic designer, and I came up with a name, The Tended Thicket. And so he just did an amazing job. It says interior landscaping, things that delight and things that grow. Well, retail wasn't for me. It lasted about 2 years, and I thought I'd have to move back to the city. And I did. Oh, actually, here's a picture of me in my store. I would go to the gift shows in San Francisco. I was just a total babe. I didn't know what I was doing. I bought these amazing, amazing baskets, shelves, pillows, and then I had different artisans that came in. And this was my friend Chet. And Chet did a whole line for the store of soft sculptures. And he would paint them, and then he would sew them, and then he put them in the pots, and we would sell them on the floor. Chet worked at dumps and display. And I remember the original dumps on Post Street. And so I was invited right after Thanksgiving dinner to go in and help set up Christmas. Chet, he died before his 30th. His 30th birthday of AIDS. Amazing, amazing, amazing guy. I love you. So one of my first gardens, I got contacted by 2 gentlemen that wanted a water course coming down, lived on a hillside coming down the side of this hill. At that time, I had no workers. I just worked on my own. So I designed, and there is a kind of seating area, pavilion at the very top, and I designed this water course that landed down by the house. There's a bridge. I'm not going to use my pointer right now because there's more exciting things coming up. And so that was kind of one of my first gardens. Then I had friends that had inherited their uncle's house, and it was Victorian. Uh, they did amazing work and stuff to renovate the inside, but there was no plans for the outside. There was a driveway, and in the back, this old kind of dilapidated garage. I thought, wow, what are you going to... They didn't know what they wanted to do. They weren't even thinking about the garden. A lot of things I still don't remember. I have to have used a contractor. Anyway, the picture on the left, God, I want to see it from your vantage point, is the driveway. So we tore everything out, and I seeded. This is all a seeded walkway, and this I decided is a wall that I did, and it's a real rough stucco koi pond, and there were 2 bedrooms. This is on the lower level. Upper areas were the dining room, the living room, the kitchen. So this was kind of the entrance into the garden, and there are doors leading in. And then, so the next picture, I laid all the stone myself. I think I had somebody bring the columns in. There's a company called Silvestri in San Francisco. They did concrete stuff. So this was the pathway into the back garden. This was from the lower. I wanted to create an allée. An allée is an avenue of trees. So above is the kitchen window, and this is one of the bedrooms. So that was the view there. To the right, that's the night lighting. I loved playing with light, and I experimented. I did it all pretty much on my own. I know that I used their contractor to do some of the work. And then this was the back section. The house is up forward. Then there was the Martin family, and I met Mrs. Goodyear. Pardon me? Can you hear me? Is that better? I met Mrs. Goodyear, and she was in the process of restoring her property in her garden. And she called me and asked me if I could assist. I said yes. So here's kind of their story. And what began to happen for me, I started working for people that really had an amazing San Francisco history. So with Goodyear, and you're going to see these are 2 sisters. I also worked for their brother, and then I worked for 4 of their children. But Goodyear Spalding Gardens, their mother was Nina Tobin Martin, who was the granddaughter of Michael H. DeYoung. You all know the DeYoung Museum. And they also were the co-founders of San Francisco Chronicle and Chron 4 Broadcasting. On top of that, they were related to Lurleen Matzenroth. Lurleen and her husband, William, purchased Filoli in 19... Does everybody know Filoli? They purchased Filoli in 1937. It was the Bourne family that owned that. And Lurleen lived there till she died. And then she decided she would donate the property to the National Trust for Historic Preservation. And I got to participate. I worked for Mrs. Goodyear for 30 years. I worked for the Spaldings. When I say I worked for them, not only did I do design work, but I maintained these properties. And you're going to see in this little story, most of the people were 30-year relationships. And of course, the family, they grew up in Hillsborough. They had a love of ships, horses. Everybody loved their gardens. And in San Francisco, it was really even rare that they used their gardens. It was too cold. Or it was 4 stories below the main part of the house. So this is Connie Goodyear. And you can kind of see the house. The picture with the staircase existed. I added the little finial things on the top. And to the right, there's a fuchsia. Fuchsia was about 45. 45 years old, and there was a camellia hedge that was probably as old as well. But the rest of the garden was really in disrepair. The fences were falling down. So we worked together. I've always worked with the client. I need to drink the water, excuse me. She told me her likes, her dislikes. So this is what we built together, designed together. This is way down. The lower garden here that you can see on your right is 4 stories down from the main part of the house. This was the walk down. She left to, you're going to see that, excuse my expression, but I was kind of the king of balls. I just had the best balls anybody could ever imagine. I was known all through San Francisco for my balls, which you'll see in a few minutes. So this is kind of the entrance to the lower garden. I found pots. I found topiary. Everybody loved topiary. So that's again another view of that walkway. This is coming down. The walls all existed. So this is coming down to the lower garden, which again is 4 stories down. And that's what this is a koi pond. We took the koi out because of the raccoons. This, on the right side, you can see the house behind. That's San Francisco's property. The areas, they're very, very small and narrow. It wasn't until later that her sister called me and wanted to know if I could help her with her garden. And I've collaborated over the years with architects, landscape architects, interior designers, and just through work. Oh, there's my 2 balls. See them there? I just noticed them up there. Collaborated. This is this house. So I don't know if you know neighborhoods, but it's way on top of the hill. Broadway was below, and this was on Pacific, but it was a private drive, and there were only 2 houses on that private drive. And you can see, so I learned how to, I don't know what I'm trying to say. You can see, just kind of sculpt. I guess that's the word. They love sculpting. They love plants that fit into a spot in a space. And at this point, I had to bring on workers, and I was really fortunate. And I trained and taught my guys how to see. I think you have to be able to see what you're doing. So this is the entrance. It's a very narrow garden. And on the back side of the house, there's no garden because it's a cliff down to the street below. You can see the house on the right. It's kind of an orange spot. So this is the front entrance. And I also would put in, we'd go to the flower market and buy hydrangeas. You can see hydrangeas throughout. Everybody loved white hydrangeas. They last about 3 months. Sometimes I tried to recycle them. There's hydrangeas in the background on the left side. Those are Annabelle. And here, I don't know, you can see on the left, my guys down on the ground. We were having raccoon problems, so we were trying to fix. And of course, balls. This was off of the living room. Where, if I'm going into too much detail, just say you're going into too much detail. What am I doing? I can't see. Oh, you can see. You can see much better than I can. This was a patio right here, off of part of the living room. The house kind of wrapped around. And this was a side area. They wanted a fountain. And you can't really see it, but behind this, oh, you can. There's the water right there. See it? So this was a fountain I built. It's a very quiet area. There's actually a bench here that you can't see. And some seating. This is the house that was in front of it, and the client had a much bigger house, decided to downsize, and the interior designer came up with an idea and a plan, and she wanted to see if I could execute it. And this is the front entrance. I did a lot of corner houses. I don't know why, and then I would get the house next to that, and the house next to that. So this is the front entrance. You can see more clipped. Everything's clipped. The guys were great. My guys, let's see if I can find it. Oh yeah, just everything, clip stuff. So it's narrow at the top, and and wider at the bottom, just for light purposes. And this is the sidewalk, that's a street view. Just another view of the front entrance. This was an amazing property. It was on a super, super, super busy street. It is one of the largest gardens or garden areas in San Francisco. The gentleman died and it sat empty for probably about 10 years. Can you see the house on the side? Low was right. And so there were so many specimens. This is in Norfolk Island pine. There were just so many beautiful trees, but the place had just really used, it was Pine Street, which is a super, super busy street. Behind the house was a grammar school, and it was an L-shaped grammar school. And so we really needed to try to figure out, there's carriage houses behind. They're back in through here. And the couple heard about me through their interior designer, and so I got involved, and one of the things was access. I'm going to back up for a minute. So this was a front entrance. I'm really in a bad place here. I can't see. This is the front entrance to the house, and the only other garden access was all the way in the back. It was a back porch off the kitchen. And so this just didn't work. They hired an architect. And so they decided what they would do is in the middle, where am I? Sorry. In the middle, this is where the dining room was. They'd put doors. And so that is, you can see the staircase down into the lower garden. This is a fire pit area. It's the side of the house. It was a park. It was so beautiful. And their goal was to just create as much quiet. I was like enclosing properties for privacy purposes. You see the fire pit, seating area, and that's the lower garden. And all the trees, I planted all of these trees through here. That's quarter line, I didn't do that. And you can see I didn't do that. This person found me. She was single, worked in Silicon Valley and bought this house. And it was on a hillside, steep hillside. And she asked me if I would come and help, and I looked. It was the first time I knew I had to hire an engineer. You can see, I feel like I need to be out with you, but I can't because of the computer. Anyway, this is the lower garden. There are only a couple of trees, the camellia in the very front on the right. And I designed this, and then found this crazy guy who engineered it, and everybody said, you know what, that's going to last through an earth. It's overbuilt. And I don't know if you can see, there's a hot tub, there's a hot tub. This is off of the back of the house, which is the dining room and kitchen. You can see the walls from this side, I designed a fence that this was a gate for the dogs that came down and then steps up, hot tub terrace, and at the very top, which had a view out, kind of a secret place to sit. We were doing the final walkthrough. This is my 1989 Loma created earthquake, and we're standing. We weren't in the garden, but we were in the kitchen looking out, and all of a sudden, the house started to shake. I swear to God, the whole garden lifted up in the air and sat itself back down. And the houses, they weren't houses, they were all apartment buildings above. All you could hear was glass shattering. And Anne, who was from Minnesota, was flipping out. And I had to try, and I was going, okay, I've born in San Francisco, I've been in earthquakes before. This was a pretty serious, there wasn't one crack, There, it all, and I thought, okay, my overbuilt garden. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. 2 years later, I thought it was kind of a miracle. I decided it's called Northern California Home and Garden. And I thought, you know what, I never entered contests or tried to do anything. And it was called the 1991 Design Achievement Awards. And what it was about is architecture, interior design, furniture, landscape, kitchens, and a whole. So I entered. I got a call. I won first place. I was going, wow. So it was written up. So that was cool. I mean, not that I didn't expect it, but I thought, wow, little old me, I did it. All right, we're going to move on. This is a whole very interesting story too. The Ham residence. The Hams were from Ham's Brewery. I don't know if you're familiar with Ham's Beer. And Ham's Brew was in San Francisco, and you could drive down the freeway and see the big ham sign and the beer pouring through the thing. Anyway, this gentleman, I took this from his book, and I couldn't find this book. I put it someplace. Anyway, it says, when the Hams hired Michael Taylor to remodel and decorate the Presidio Heights townhouse in 1972, he was their 7th interior designer. Her name was Candy Ham. Candy, who was extremely knowledgeable about design and decorative arts, found that she was mentoring her designers, not the other way around. That bothersome exercise ceased with Taylor. It became a 6-year remodel and included enclosing an area that became the residence forecourt, which a lot of people don't know what a forecourt is, leading into the townhouse entry hall and out the back. That's a picture of Michael Taylor. I'm going to say he's famous for what he designed as the California look. So it's very coastal feeling. He used a lot, this is in his office. He lived in the Seacliff, you're going to see later, in the Seacliff neighborhood of San Francisco, which is right on the ocean. But anyway, he was a perfect match for Candy. Candy had also been through 7 gardeners, just like she had been through, and she saw me working one day across the street from the house, and she invited me over. You can even move on. And she said she's looking for a new gardener, and would I be interested? And I looked, and I thought, well, I could probably take care of and do this. The forecourt, unfortunately, I lost pictures. I don't have a picture. A forecourt is an enclosed area that this particular forecourt was all lattice with a glass roof. See the 2 camellias to either side. She had Versailles pots of camellias. Everything was like totally immaculate. This was the entrance hall in the middle there. Let me go on. So I get there and we do our walkthrough. This is the garden room. There was a garden room. This is what Michael Taylor designed. It's a trompe-l'oeil ceiling. Dudley is the horse's or the deer's name on the right. So we go out. This is not in order. The boxwood. So there was boxwood everywhere, which you'll see. It was at least 45 years old, and she had a certain particular way of pruning. Unfortunately, this is Ramon. It had died. And when the one dies, to try to find a duplicate, and this was an old variety that they don't even grow anymore. A boxwood is called japonica. It's a blend japonica. Anyway, we were working there. So, oops. I get there, and the first thing she says, no half leaves. Excuse me? No half leaves? I don't know what that means. She says, no half leaves. I said, no half leaves anywhere? She said, no half leaves anywhere. She was one of the greatest, a little neurotic, but she was one of the greatest teachers I ever had. As you can see, this is all boxwood. Here, no half leaves. She had a word called pluck. Plucking was when there was new growth coming, and it was easily It was easily pulled, but we would sit on little cans or just on the thing with bonsai scissors. And we would spend days and days and days clipping, no half leaves. And usually you take a shear and you shear it into shape, and you can see that there's so many shapes. This wasn't a big area or a big garden at all. So that's my practice now, not with boxwood. This is ivy. It's a pretty simple garden. This is a sunken garden here. This is ivy, boxwood. This is all contained. This is on a deck. This is the deck off that garden room we saw and the kitchen. And these are azaleas and everything. We had this whole. I climbed in this tree 2 or 3 times a year and would have to open it up and no half. There was not half a leaf anywhere. Just another view. And then there's tree ferns. I don't know if you can see the tree ferns in the background right here. When we got too big, she made me take them out and put small ones in because just the scale. You're going to see Roberto, my ex-partner, is here today. You'll see his garden. And so we accumulated a lot of really amazing specimen plants that came to Roberto's garden. So these tree ferns are actually in Roberto's garden. So there's the azaleas when they're in bloom. That was Dudley. The Hams decided to sell the San Francisco house and move to Palm Beach. And Bob Bell was a gentleman who did these amazing floral designs in the 70s and 80s. And they commissioned him to do this Dudley. And when she moved to Palm Beach, she insisted on taking Dudley with her. He died. It's just too hot and too humid, and he didn't make it. Unfortunately, Mr. Ham passed as well, but that's the Ham garden. I'm moving along. I can't remember how I met the princess. So the gentleman is Rainier, and Genevieve, and it's Di San Bastino. Rainier was an Italian prince. Jenny was from Santa Barbara. She married the prince, so she became Princess Genevieve Di San Faustino. Another house I worked for over 30 years. He had passed. She had been in the house. The left picture is Geraldine, who was her right arm. She loved food, she loved to cook. Actually, she decided she'd do a cookbook for her friends and her family with all the recipes, everything. A lot of it's handwritten. Anybody ever wants to see this, you can talk to me about it. It's this amazing cookbook. She was such an amazing spirit. And Geraldine was her right arm. She would do these elaborate dinners. She had a whole bunch of amazing people come. And there she is, as I knew her, on the right. And this is up on her library terrace, where she used to inspect. I loved it. She'd call me at like 10 o'clock at night and say, could you do this, could you do this, could you do this? This is the front of the house, coming up to the front of the house. A lot of the material was already 20, 30 years old. And again, to try to keep something living for a long time. The picture on the right with she liked horses too, turkey horses. This is the front steps leading up to the house. The house was published. We were part of the Garden Conservancy. There were many tours that would come through the gardens. We would do lectures and talks to schools. And this was not designed by me. This is a very steep hillside. It's divided into 4 areas. If you need for me to come out further and point, let me know, but I think you can get an idea. And you can see that like it's just all the fences and everything, all the detail work. And there were, that's it, yeah. I'm just gonna keep going. There's a fountain. Again, really narrow spaces. Here's the fountain area. it was a pretty complicated garden. She loved roses. Everybody loves roses. Everybody loves roses in San Francisco because you can't grow them because it's too cold. But we tried, and actually we were successful with a lot of varieties. Oh, this is one of our rose arbors too. This here, she found these tiles. They were hand painted Italian tiles. And so she had all the tiles inlaid into the side of the wall. And then this these are retaining walls. But what a way to decorate or cover a retaining wall. There were lights everywhere. She had thousands of lights, the whole place. When you drove up front, it was like, holy cow, who lives there? It's just one that you can see how narrow the walkways are. She found these great birds. She had bird sculptures all the way around. And again, this is from the magazine, and part of the article. This is where I came in. Just different views of the garden. Everything was told where it needed to sit and how it needed to stay. So there's a lot of pruning work that has to go on in all these gardens. Just a side area. So there's that door I was talking about. It was kind of neat. Everybody was so intrigued. And that was from her library terrace when we were successful with white roses, which I thought went really, really well with all the white fencing that went around. The three gentlemen on the left, or one of those that's me on the right, and then those are two of my workers. One of the things we did in many of our houses, we would plant not thousands of pots of tulips and daffodils, but thousands of bulbs. So the guys are in the process of doing that. And then I met so many amazing people through Jenny. She was very friendly with Jane Goodall, and Jane would come and visit. She's a real adventurer. And then there was a garden photographer from England, and that's Jerry, right here. And he would come to California once a year, and he would go up and down the coast and photograph gardens. And Jenny became very friendly with him, and I became very friendly with him. And then he said he had a friend coming, and he wanted me to meet him. And the gentleman in the middle was Prince Charles and Princess Diana's second-in-line gardener. And there's me. And that's actually at my house. I was going to tell a story about meeting them, and I was one and only time I was invited to. Is this still working? What's happening?
There you go.
I think I have it. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know where I left off. Anyway, Prince Charles and Princess Diana's pet died, and Jenny invites us to dinner one night. It's pretty formal. I'm not going to tell this story. It's too personal. These are imaginations. Okay. All right. So this is an interesting property, the McGowan property. Mother McGowan started Safeway, and she passed. And so her son and his wife inherited the house, moved into Peter McGowan. Peter McGowan he owned the Giants. So they had Safeway and the Giants, and then the house here, where is it? This is the old Spreckles mansion. This is just the side of it. And it goes way down the hill. And this is where Danielle Steele spends part of her time. She has a house in Europe too. Yew trees were existing. This is me. I redid the whole garden. I put a big camellia hedge in front. You can see everything better is into security. So they decided they were getting in so much trouble. They would put these cameras. You'd walk by, there's cameras with beautiful urns, and they all had cameras in them. There's my balls. This is the front entrance. More balls. And this was a tiny little courtyard, and then the back of this house dropped down the mountain, the hill. So there was no real back garden. This was the entrance to the house, so this was used a lot. Just a fountain area. But you can see everything is clipped kind of to perfection. And then we move on to another house. This is the Shorenstein residence. And Walter Shorenstein was, he was, what'd you just say? Yeah, he was property. He owned a lot of San Francisco. And this was his son. And the house at the top. This is taken, you're going to see the Dolby residence in a minute or two. Like Dolby Sound and Dolby. So this was taken from the Dolby house looking up. And this brick, sorry. So this is the original house that they lived in. And then they decided they wanted to buy the property below and build. They wanted to have Mrs. Shorenstein's office, they wanted to have a yoga studio, they wanted to have a gym, they wanted to have a swimming pool, they wanted to have guest quarters, and so they bought this parcel of property. And I got called in. And so they were very much into art and modern art, both inside and outside. This was taken after I'd already been here for maybe 2 or 3 years. The original garden, I didn't do it. This is on top of the roof of that building, just like here, where we're basically built on top of the roof. They have that sculpture, which they got rid of. You can see this great city view and also the bay toward Alcatraz. Lots of roof. That's the house across the street that they were working on. This is kind of what it looked like when they handed it over to me. Mrs. Shorenstein wasn't happy with a lot of this kind of planting. This is again on top of the roof. This is off the kitchen dining room. This was me, so I had to come in. Can you see Alcatraz over there? Just to get an idea, there's Alcatraz right there. And then there was a big fire pit patio area beyond. This is a swimming pool below. These slid open. The swimming pool went all the way under. It's a big lap pool, went all the way under. It's really a beautiful, beautiful house. Just some of the detail of the work. I can't remember the name of the people that built or made the sculpture, or designed the sculpture. And then, I'm sorry?
Andy Goldsworthy?
You know what, I'm not. Is that what it looks like to you? I don't know. I don't know. And then because of the fog and cold in San Francisco, after about 4 years, it started to rust. So they had to bring in a team to put it back together. This was the staircase down to this new lower area. I don't have really good pictures of this. I wish I did. This is the swimming pool terrace. There's water wheels all through here. It's all really contemporary and clean and simple, and the pool runs all the way through. And this was a staircase coming down. That was the Shorensteins. So the Dolbys had I worked with the Dolbys for almost 40 years. They were my very, very, very first clients. And so in that period of time, they had 3 different houses. This first one was pretty simple. I didn't know anything about the Dolbys. I'd go up, Ray Dolby had his very top floor, and it was like this mad scientist. There was circuitry, and there was all this stuff all around. The reason I would go up there is because it was a terrace that was planted, and I had to take care of it. He was a really shy man, and over time, of course, he would stop and show me and explain to me what he was doing, which was way beyond my comprehension. As they became more successful, they were pretty young in his career, they decided they would move a block down. So they found this house. They spent 3 years restoring the house before they moved in. And this was the back garden. Very small, 3 stories down from just the main area. Dagmar loved roses everywhere, which you'll see in the next house. I designed the fence. Roses did really well in this garden. And then they found this big, huge, I don't know how many rooms are in this house. I'm going to say 30. It's big. And Dagmar hired two landscape architects. Landscape, she just wasn't satisfied, so we together kind of put this garden together. And this is just the side. So we're coming up. I'm going to back up. That's the street. That's a sidewalk. And then as you come up the steps, this is a small little space. Those are the roses. There's Winnie. Can you see Winnie here? Where's Winnie? Winnie is here. Am I on the right? Am I on the right one? Anyway, oh good. So Winnie's there. And this is kind of the entrance. So on the left is still on the street. The right is coming up the steps to the front entrance. Front door. Everything was clipped. This was the garage roof. And you're going to see a better picture in a minute, so you see. So this is the roof of the garage on the right side. And this is kind of how it's hard. These two pictures have been put together. The left, you can see a staircase. It's going up toward the back of the house. Mrs. Dolby had her architect design. None of this existed when she purchased the property. 6-car garage under here, which insisted on lead. She loved things that were obelisk shapes and pyramidal shapes. And this tree, which you'll see better, is the oldest Maine tree in San Francisco. It's just this magnificent, magnificent specimen. I worked with two really amazing arborists. Everything, of course, had to be maintained to make sure that nothing would die. So this is all new, and this you'll see the walk and a walk back through. And here we go. Oh, that's still more the same. You can see a pile of stuff where we're working. This is looking into the back part of the garden, and you can kind of see the main above. And all the trellis work was added. Can you see what's holding the mason tree up? Where'd it go? It's really great structure. And then Dagmar liked to go shopping, so she found really neat throughout containers and pots. And they were my longest running clients. There's the mason tree. It's just, I went back to the city maybe a month ago, and I thought, you know what, I got to check all my houses out. Everything looked more beautiful then or now than it did when I took care of it, which made my heart really feel good. This is a walk. So you can kind of see the lower garden. This is a walkway up into the houses. Most of the houses are all 4 stories, into an area where she loved Cymbidium orchids. So we had a whole section. What's wrong way? That's just a detail. There we go. I think we had 250 Cymbidium orchids. And you can see the guys. Every year we'd have to see where they're staking them. And they did so well. It was a whole zone of Cymbidiums. Then there were these 4 houses all in a row. This is Presidio Heights of San Francisco. What am I doing as far as time? Okay. Wow. Am I doing okay? Excuse me for that. This was a Google shot that I took, but I did all these. This is the house I started with here. And I'll tell you that story. We're going to start at this house, then I did this house, and then I did this house. And that's what was starting to happen. I was getting more and more houses all in a row. Oops. So that's the first house. It's kind of hard to tell or see. This was dug. The garage entrance was here, and they didn't like that, so they dug underneath the house and put a 6-car garage in. So this got kind of broken up. Interesting gentleman, the Galmettis. He was a home builder here in East Bay, and I can't remember, I wrote it down someplace, but I didn't save it. And his wife was an interior designer, and he'd build a house, and then she would stage all the models. They lived over here in East Bay for many, many years, and then bought this house and moved to San Francisco. I got a lot of work through, the name is Lauren. So that's the front entrance, and again, you can see everything. People really like them. The houses, the architecture kind of dictated more formal, especially in the front. Maybe if you decide this was any good, I'll show you back pictures, the back garden pictures. Most of these are all front gardens. That's just a detail of the wisteria growing up. There was the wisteria growing up in the house. And that was along the front walk. And that's just on the street. We're moving down one house now. This is the Bly house. This is another house that I worked for. You see the big balls there? So when I was hired, and I did my walkthrough and talk, the balls were wrapped in fishing line, monofilament, and they were just like, they were all over the place. So she said, you have to do something. I said, yeah, no problem. So we went in. I didn't do, I mean, there were half leaves. We went in and we sheared them really hard. And that night, the phone rang. It was Mrs. Bly, and she was hysterical, crying. She was crying uncontrollably. And she was yelling at me that I had ruined her balls. I'm going, oh man. So I told her, which I've done with quite a few of these clients, I'll be right over. In a lot of cases, what you have to do is hold people's hands. So I went over, I reassured her that everything would work out. She just needed to be patient, give me a little bit of time. And these are probably 60 years old. Just a view up to the front door. There are white roses all around too that you can't see. You'll see in a couple of pictures. Here are my guys. There are my favorite shears. You can see down in the lower, is everything had to fit just on the brick wall. And I didn't want to run a straight line. So I just sculpted things out, or the way this, which is a much softer plant, would flow on this very, very clipped. I mean, my guys did amazing. It's all by hand. Everything was always by hand. And I added a lot of trees and stuff around. They were big, or they are big. This is next door. Here I am with my balls again. Front entrance. Front walkway. I like those pictures though. These were in pots. So we had to cut. The pots sat right at the top part of the boxwood, and then we plant. So everything had to be pretty precise. And then there's a walkway into this garden, which you'll see in a second, which was where the living room was, off the living room garden. This was Mrs. Dressing Room Terrace up here. Just another shot of how it all felt and how it all looked. Was looking from the living room. And that was looking from her house into the Bly garden, up into I could stand at certain points and look and see all three, and then the fourth one, which I don't have pictures of for this presentation. They decided, so where we just were, this is Presidio Heights. Presidio Heights borders the San Francisco Presidio. And this is the Crable house. You can kind of see the scale. This is my garden, as well. You can see it. I maintained and took care of this garden for years, and the husband and wife divorced, and I was fired. And then the wife decided she didn't want a house this big, so the Crables bought it. and it was a 3-year, and they asked me to work on the landscape, but I was moving to Diamante, so I couldn't do it. And it's an amazing, 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 amazing park. Here's the back of the house. And again, this all borders the Presidio. So it gives you an idea just of the scale of the houses. Up the hill, this was the Cohan residence. Mr. Cohan made his money satellites, and he owned the Warriors, San Francisco Warriors, for a period of time. He wasn't really well liked, and don't get into the dynamics of that. This is their front entrance, and we used to do a lot of holiday work. So we would hang all the wreaths. Here you can see the guys were hanging the wreaths. This is a beautiful, beautiful house, and it's a beautiful back garden, and I don't have photos of that to show you. This was the front, just the sidewalk. It's a corner house. Then we move on to, these houses are always like 2 and 3 and 4 blocks away from one another. This is the Kramlich residence. So you can kind of get an idea of the architecture on a corner. So there's not a lot to it. To the left, you can see the staircase. It was a nothing garden, and Mrs. wanted to redo it. You can see how we prune. These are all magnolias. And you can see how you can see, this was, I believe my arborist's name was DDA Termignon. Do this pruning. You can see what it looks like, and then you can see what it looks like when it's filled out. But we couldn't block windows, so we had to always make sure that the views out were left. You can see that I didn't want to cover it was a beautiful fence that went around. It's more for dogs. So I just did these like cutouts just so the fences would show through. Front entrance, gate entrance. On the right is the entrance to the house. It was like almost medieval castle inside. To the left, you can see how the magnolias have filled in. The Kramlichs have one of the largest private video art collections in the world. I don't know if you know what video art is. Video art is art that's projected. So artists will put these different video pieces together, and it's projected on the wall. And so when you would go into the house, every single room had an installation. But their collection was so big that they've been published. Museum of Modern Art, everywhere. Their collections traveled the world, but they really wanted to find a place with permanent connection. This was off the back part of the house. I'm off on a little tangent, but not for long. This is the back part. It's just a garden room that they would spend a lot of time in, and across there was the fireplace that we put in. You can see how everything has its place and is tamed. They did a lot of entertaining in that zone, and that's actually Ham and Dick, right? What's happening? Hold the mic. Am I doing okay? Are you guys all okay? Something? Excuse me. Okay. We do not So I believe you heard that the Kramlichs have one of the largest private art collections. I also say a lot of these people became my friends, and I was very, very close to Dick and Pam. They have this wonderful property in Napa Valley for years and years, and maybe every 6 or so weeks, and she always asked me about the gardens again. Were one of the most important things to all the people. So they wanted to find a property where they could build a new house, a house that would house the collection. So they hired, where's that slide? Oh, here it is. So the Swiss architects, or the Swiss architectural firm Herzog and Moore, and they were the ones that designed the Dion Museum, San Francisco Dion Museum. We get an idea there. And they called it Project 58. Pam Kramer did this amazing storybook of their house. And their house was again to hold the collection.
There's a pretty odd one. One second, everybody. Yeah, maybe dead.
Testing. Sorry, you guys. So, can you see? So this is the property, and this took years and years to go through counties, and you see the hillside? This was a hillside. Then they cut into the hill to build their house. Then when you drove up, you came up this long, or you come up this long driveway. And this is the entrance to the video art collection. This is the main door. This is for delivery, storage, and on top, you're going to see what's on top, is our private quarters. These are just views. This is in this book, and you're going to see that this is just after the architecture was completed. So these were all the rooms they were to, this is family, friends, and they also wanted to educate. It's not open to the public, it's not a public place. I'm hoping that they are building a whole new wing. I used to go up every 6 weeks, Gambon, you know, but I thought about building, I didn't have anything to do with the landscape. And there was the house that sat on top of, I'm gonna back up again. So, oops, on top of that structure, sat that. And it was basically built of glass mirror. It sets into the top and into the landscape. And it's just spectacular. This is their private quarters. And then everything was like an illusion. I don't know if you can see that there's a reflection of the trees. Again, and mirrors and glass. So it's a trip. There's a staircase that goes down into now, this is from the private part of the house, down into the collection. There's a dining room that seats 150. I'm hoping, I asked Pam if I could bring a group from here once they're done. She was in agreement. There is a docent. It's unbelievable. This is not a double staircase, it's a reflection of, and this is a piece, this is actually an art installation, a piece of video art here. And this is, again, their private quarters. There's a reflecting swimming. This is amazing. I don't think the pool had gone in yet. There's this amazing swimming pool that just blends right into the landscape. So all these people were just like, they were my teachers. I learned so much from them. I didn't necessarily have to do the design of the garden, but I got to be a part of so much more of their lives. Stephen Volpe, who's an it's an AD 100 designer. AD is Architectural Digest. I've gotten a lot of work from him. He also went to Schaefer School of Design. I talked about Michael Taylor earlier, the Ham residence. He went to Schaefer School of Design. But this was his house. It was a place divided into two. It was really particular. Really tiny little courtyard garden that I basically put together from him on the right. Actually both. They're just views from the library on the second floor library down in. There's a fountain. You don't get to see the whole thing. This was one of my most favorite houses. Chevron, oil people,
family lived there for years and passed, and Coulter family purchased it. And again, another corner house, you can see how big it is. I mean, it's like, and then down here was, this is the I wanted to show you pictures of the garden, which I've done. I did all those planting, but there's a carriage house in the back, and then it goes beyond. So it goes way past this particular property, about 3 properties in. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful house. Front entrance. And that's how big the front property was. I'm going to back up again. You can see that the landscape is hardly anything just coming down the hill. It's just, there's planting strips really. So they own about 5 or 6 different properties. The children really got into horses, and they found this 129-acre parcel and decided to build. I'm thinking, I don't know what I'm thinking about. Oh, hired, I'm going to move on. So again, the property owner this. So what it is this is a stallion barn. This is an outdoor arena. This is the main stables, which was the only building. Actually, this building and this building existed. Then they built this new big arena and hired landscape artistry. She loved grass, one lawn everywhere. She hired a landscape designer to come in and design the garden. And I got a call from her. She's going to talk to you. I said, what's going on? I went over and she said she really disliked what the landscape architect had done, and could I please help? She said her husband was having his 50th birthday party in 6 weeks, and could I get this done? Little old me. So this is all these trees, so there's nothing here, nothing. The trees had just been purchased and brought in. And I was given, I said this, how I figured out how I would do this. I took these pictures and I did tracing paper, and I do these tracing paper overlays, and I would draw the trees and the bushes. So if there were bushes here, I would draw them in, and then I would just color them. I would just take colored pencil, color. I mean, I wasn't going to be drafting or drawing or anything. I just did not do that. So I got it together, and she looked at me, she said, I like that. She says, go for it. Go for it, okay. So this is the new indoor arena they just built. These are all just, you can see what I'm getting. I'm getting basically, this is the horse. It's a beautiful, beautiful, all the woodworking stuff. They had already laid out, which was a hell. These were, if you wanted the grass, you can see where they were, this was already laid out. This is where I had to try to do my magic. And parts of the areas the road hadn't even put in yet. And then we went. And I worked with a friend. I had never done anything to this scale before. I traveled up down the coast, up and down kind of California to the nurseries to try to find and spec the biggest, the best. You can see this was kind of fall time. In the fall, plants aren't as big as they are in the spring. So again, we accepted, and the trucks started arriving. And this is a big property. And then after we started unloading, you can see we're starting to bring all the material that I planned to spec. And here we are planting. And these were all garage doors. These were all roll-up doors. All these doors roll up. These are what they call hornbeam. They stay pretty narrow and grow, and on each, you can't see it here, but they're on each column. So I wanted the spacing when we wanted to lift to raise the door. So this was all these trees were all, those weren't, I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is kind of how we're going. This is all boxwood. You can see, I mean, just plant after plant after plant after plant. It was coming together, and I was so excited. It actually was working. I liked the way it was feeling and how it looked. This is kind of just one of the finished sides. Then we'd have to go in. We call this nursery stock. All this new plant materials called nursery stock. So when you have nursery stock, you have to teach it or train it. So everything had to be throughout clipped. We had to clip. This was not as, it was higher than the wall. We had to clip it to fit the wall. This boxwood. So there's a lot of work to do just in the finishing product. This was coming up the drive. How many million plants we put in? I only did 2 rows below in the trees. Filled in, it's really actually quite beautiful now. And that's kind of looking, that's the indoor arena. So as chaotic as it was putting it together, it was pretty, kind of, I call it unstately, not stately, it just worked. It was simple, it was easy. This is the stallion barn with the top. You can see we've got the stonework in where the road was going to go below. That's from the outdoor arena looking up. This is inside. They did a lot of jumping. This is the observation room. It was like really beautifully put together. For $1 million horses, they would travel to Europe with these horses. And it's citrus all around, different kinds of citrus all around this building. You can see that the road was just going to do it. Aha, very road. Spanish girl, where's Roberto? You out there someplace? Right here. There he is. How do we tell this story? Yeah. So Roberto and I met at a mutual friend's birthday party, and he's an insane guy, and he seemed to be attracted to me. And I thought, oh. 4 days later, we got the key to my house. And I thought, what did you do? I thought, look, this says, I mean, Roberto, you're somebody that never has read or learned to read or write. He was the chief of the main line, San Francisco Main Libraries, other positions. He had retired, and he was familiar with the Russian River, so he decided that he was going to retire there. And we met, and he was packing his San Francisco place. He was closing on his Russian River place to move there full time. So he invited me up. I went up. And he had hired a garden designer to help him. The house was I'm not going to go into detail about the house. Let you see the garden. But this was a good friend of his. So I would go up and we would sit outside. I got to keep my mouth shut. I know the guy this well. I can't tell him that what this person is proposing. This is kind of not appropriate for what his need is or needs are, and what my needs, if in fact I'm going to be a part of your life, are going to be. So he fired her. And I knew she was, and I knew the one goal that I had, that when she got invited up, she couldn't complain about anything. The work, she came, she never complained about anything. So Roberto and I, our sensibilities were so similar. Roberto came up, there were, just like this, there were no real ways of getting from inside of the house out, so we tried to open up as many of the walls as possible to go into the garden. So Roberto came up, both kind of like Asian aesthetics with these fences. And in this town, which is a historic town, it's called Ville Grande, all the houses have, is that correct, Roberto? Fences or gates that have meaning. So you can see, this is on the side, this is in front of the house, this is along the side. I wish I was sitting there. So one of the entrances. And I think that that's how I hurt my hands. That's how I hurt my shoulders. We did most of the work. There were a couple of contractors that came in. We laid all the stone. This is just looking up. I didn't even talk about bioswales here, which I never really knew bioswale. We said all these rocks were buried all over the garden. It was a gardener that had the property. I don't really think she knew what she was doing. Anyway, it's like a rainforest in the winter. So we took all these rocks and I thought, oh, we'll tie them into the drain spouts of the roof. So when it rains, instead of the water coming right down into the house, which it does, they drain into this dry in the summer and then wet in the winter. And a little bridge across. It's all fantasy. And a lot of these trees from the princess, there's plants from the princess. A lot of these plants all came from all my San Francisco gardens. This is a little just aside, the same area. And Roberto's a party animal, an entertainer. And so one of the biggest problems that I was having is that there really wasn't enough room or space for people. This was so there were Roberto 2 windows. I think there were 2 windows here, no access, and this we opened it up and put doors out. And this is the back area, which has a fire pit, a kitchen with refrigerator and barbecue, what else, sink. On the left side was the original color of the house, and on the right side is the new color of the house. And this house is used. And there's just a group, whether this was a lecture that was, I don't remember what it was about. The people come, there's the fire pit. It's really, I'm really proud of Roberto. Usually he's supposed to go to the pot after you leave them. He's managed to really take good care of us, which is important to me. Let's go fire pit. Let's see. I think I need to hurry up. Just a view. So we have that box, that box, which worked really well. Never any eggs, insects or problems. A friend that just took old redwood. This is a redwood grove with details. And that's why we're going to call it the fairy grove. The fairy ring of redwoods. You can see the scale of the trees. This is on the side of the property, entering from the back. And Roberto turned 80 this year, and he said, could you do a little flower arrangement for me for the food table? Actually, Gianfranco from Villagrana came all the way down. Gianfranco, he said, would you and Lon do this flower thing? And I found a little base here, and I went to Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, and I got like a little bundle of flowers, 4 bundles of flowers, and went out. There were so many things blooming and growing, and Gianfranco was crazy and insane too. He has all these flowers. So we lifted, this was the flower arrangement Gianfranco and I put together for Roberto. Okay, now we're going to move, we're almost there. Now we're going to be to Seacliff. It's going to be the Seacliff neighborhood of San Francisco. This is quite a property. These 2 trees that you see in the foreground were in the, it was a 1960 San Francisco World's Fair, and they were planted there, New Zealand Christmas trees, and they were planted someplace in the fairgrounds, and then they needed to get them and move them. And so this house got these trees, and they're pretty amazing. You see, this is the owner, and this is Minor. She wanted pots in front. You see how we would cut? See, we had to cut the hedge, push it, and make everything go here. These are just absolutely amazing. These have to get trimmed. They really go so fast. We trim them only once a year, and that's the front entrance. It was a decorated showcase house. At one time, It's funny, a lot of these have pumpkins in them. So that's a view toward the front door of the house and then a view up toward the gate. This was, when I first started, this place was a mess when I took it over. It's just up the front, if you see where that big pumpkin idea came from. Just frames along the side of the house. So that's back of the house. The back of the house literally is on the cliff of the ocean. This is my favorite place to always be. So what a contrast. You're going to see 2 more houses after this. First thing I ever wanted to do when I arrived was just go back. It was just like magic. I decided that I would put metal plants in the urns just because it was so harsh. There were seating areas, there is seating areas back in the house part of it, back here. So that's the big repeat. Baker Beach over there in Old Acreage, Presidio in the background. This is from her dressing room terrace. All the terraces, and it's just to hang out there and listen to the water. All right, I should probably come out and show you. So this is usually a quick idea of the Seacliff neighborhood. And this is Seacliff Avenue right here. And the house you just saw is right there. The Benioff house is right someplace right here. I can't see, unfortunately. So at Seacliff Avenue, this is El Camino del Mar. El Camino del Mar goes up past golf course up to the Legion of Honor. You know what a San Francisco Legion. So that's kind of the same way. This is the next property that you're going to see. Oh no, it's not. This gives you an idea of just what these houses feel like and look like, and what people are doing. The one I can't see. I can't see because of the way the screen is. Oh, that. They just kind of dig. They own all the way down to the cliffs. So it's pretty spectacular. These are much higher. Seacliff Avenue is much lower. Yeah, these are much higher. So this is the residence. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. So here's the house. This is the house. This was a house, and the owners tore it down to build us some new mega thingy, and they forgot that they needed permits to tear it down. So they were fined huge amounts of money, and then they decided they would put the property up for sale. And because these people want to be so private, they bought it. They want to be so private that this house came on the market, they bought it. This has been empty unless something's been done in the last 2 years since I've been away. This has been empty for 10 years maybe. Underneath this lawn terrace, it's kind of hard to tell. You can't see anything. It's better. So now they own all of this whole property. It's huge. We had to hear. So underneath here is a yoga studio, and the whole is all built out under, and then a staircase. This is called, she calls this the overlook. And she insisted she wanted to be on the overlook. She did not want to see any of these houses. And she just wanted to be completely tucked in. It's like, you'll see as much as I can show you. You can see that there's a long terrace there. That kind of gives you an idea. I got hurry. Oh, did you do that? I did. So that's kind of the view looking down on it. You can kind of see where the old house was and what they did there. You can see the blue house that they had purchased. That's what it looks like in the front. Oops, are you doing that or am I doing that? No, it's, oh, sorry everybody. That's what it looks like from the front. It's kind of really nondescript. That's looks like a little nothing. We planted, I worked along with very dear friend who's a landscape designer. And I always kind of consulted a lot of designers just about the horticulture and the plants, life. So that's just, those are the garages. There's a children's playhouse. So you can see the children's playhouse on the right and up above the house. Two different views of the house. Coming, the playhouse is still there. And this is where the old house was torn down. It was so beautiful. She wanted just lawn terraces that wrapped around it. Well, that's us. We were trimming and pruning. The fences have disappeared. The other thing we have to do is these are Monterey cypress trees. They get really, really big. So over time, I think this looks pretty. We had a sheer mall. Everything got boxed. Everything became almost a hedge. These are echiums, which are, you see pictures of them in blue, are really beautiful. So it was very coastal, all of the planting. You can see the Monterey cypress that are going to eventually, they're going to be tall back there because they block the ocean. Just more views. This is the pathway, the beginning of the pathway down to the overlook. That's an echium on the right that's just finished blooming. And we had to, everything had to be cut. I don't know how much, 20,000, a lot of money. Big, huge. Everything is cut all the way down the mountain. We're almost there, you guys. Thank you for being patient with me. I love coming here too. It's just like, just kind of this amazing, amazing place. That's that. My last garden before I moved here. This I call it my COVID garden because we had just gotten into the whole COVID ordeal. This is also on the coast. Metalco, rock group, owned two houses together, and my client purchased one of them. And it was ugly, and there you can see this wall up, but we decided we would do a styrofoam frontal. It's a styrofoam cap, just to kind of make it feel better. I think this is the driveway. Let me go further along here. Just the entrance. I took everything out. We had this weird fountain. I removed the fountain. The lion I had, so I brought it over. I thought I could incorporate it into the new garden. See, we pretty much stripped it down to nothing. There were a couple of trees. There's the house. And then, see the window on the right? That was the breakfast room. And the client said, we never go outside. I said, I don't understand you never go outside. We never go outside. We're allergic to flowers and pollen. You'll never, ever go outside. I said, well, that really wasn't, it didn't stay the case, which I'll show you in the back. So here we are. This is the existing pathway. I mean, this is just, so this, what you'll see, I curved this all out, closed all of that, made this wider. So just kind of a lot of restoration work. They were crazy about color. This is all the choice in color. I put a second, that's the main path. I started to put a secondary pathway in. Climbing the hill, more planting. This is looking out toward the front. It's finally coming together. Well, you can see the new, how I widened the pathway. That's looking up toward the front. They love Buddhists, so we have Buddhists everywhere. And there's fountains, these fountains like the sound of water in front. Two completely different microclimates. When you're in the front of the house, totally different than when you walked through the doors, which you'll see. Just more looking through. And this is China Beach below. China Beach down here, which you'll see. So there was Baker Beach, which is further along than China Beach. And Mr. only got so. There's a big, huge tree. It was really sick. We had to remove it. So planted our hedge material. And they were bringing in their favorite thing food is there's China Beach on the right. And see below, Martha knows every fisherman, every surfer, every swimmer. She sits outside for 4 hours. This person wouldn't ever go outside. She's built like a house out there for herself. And she can call down to everybody on the beach. People bring her fresh fish. She said, we talk to each other once, twice a week. She's a real character. And I think that's it. No? Oh, there's the guys having lunch. I mean, it's a drop off. It's right on the edge. It drops. It's such a beautiful, beautiful sight. And that's the last. No, is it the last? That end,